The Outlaw Motorcycle Gang.
Outlaw bikers that were walking down the street.
This is a member of an outlaw motorcycle gang.
As Outlaw Motorcycle Gang member.
Ferocious and uncompromising one-percenter clubs, they have earned both the respect and envy of rival biker gangs.
When you think of outlaw motorcycle clubs, the notorious Hells Angels may come to mind. But there is one club that truly embodies the essence of the word outlaw. A club that is known for treating their women as possessions and capitalizing on them. So how did these savage bikers establish their dominance amidst other biker clubs, who are just as ruthless and lawless as them? Are they more powerful than the Hells Angels? And is their alleged practice of exploiting their wives for profit truly a lucrative venture? The Outlaws Motorcycle Club, one of the most feared motorcycle clubs in the world, is born in 1935 in Matilda's Bar on the old Route 66 in McCook, Illinois. At first, they are called the McCook Outlaws Motorcycle Club, and they are not part of the 1% group. That comes much later. As with many clubs, the Outlaws' membership dwindles during World War II, as many are lost to the brutal war. After the war ends, to bring back some enthusiasm, the club decides to hold a post-war event at Soldier Field in Chicago in 1946. As their numbers start to grow, the Outlaws have to regroup, regather, and rethink. At this point, they still treat their women well. Next, something happens that will change the Outlaws' image forever. So, during the mid-1950s, the Outlaws move from McCook to Chicago. During this move, the bikers also decide to change their image and name. From that point on, they are no longer called the McCook Outlaws, but the Chicago Outlaws. The image of the winged motorcycle and old English-style lettering of the club logo is also replaced by a small skull, and a tougher image is adopted. However, things begin to change in the 1950s, and in 1960, they earn a reputation of being a dangerous group of individuals you don't want to mess with. Even the American Motorcycle Association tries to ban the word outlaw from appearing on any race clothing at its events. But the club members simply get around the ban by wearing an OMC on their outfits instead. They relish in their outlaw status and are not afraid to tell the world who they are. The Outlaws expand their territory even more, forcing other clubs to take notice. On July 4, 1964, the Outlaws acquire the Milwaukee Gypsy Outlaws and the Louisville Gypsy Outlaws. From this pivotal moment onward, the Chicago Outlaws transcend their origins of their hometown, as the club confidently assumes the name The Outlaws, leaving no room for doubt and resolutely embodying the very epitome of the term. In this new era, the stronghold in Chicago becomes the mother chapter. With the new chapters on board, the hunger for expansion is even greater, and they are treating their women differently.
Now in 1967, the Outlaws then went on to Florida and started a chapter there. I can already tell you that when I researched this chapter of the Outlaws, I was shocked how some of their members treat their women. Especially this guy called Joe Spaziano, aka Crazy Joe. We will get to this later, but he really is the epitome of the famous Outlaws MC saying, "God forgives, outlaws don't."
In 1977, the Outlaws reach a global stage with their first international chapter in Canada, where the chapters of the Satan's Choice patch over their logo to become part of the Outlaws. But they don't stop there. They want more. They want Europe. And so they get it. In 1993, the European movement starts in France in 1993. Soon, it isn't long before other countries get on the Outlaws train, with Belgium, the UK, Germany, Sweden, Italy, Poland, Russia, and Norway joining their forces too. The Outlaws have 1,700 members, 176 chapters spread across the United States and 12 foreign countries, including those in Europe, plus Australia, Japan, Norway, and Russia. The Empire of the Outlaws MC is an embodiment of the American quest for freedom and finds resonance around the world. But the Outlaws are not the only ones who strive for freedom, fame, and power. Anyone who decides to move outside the law must expect to be confronted not only by the police, but also by other lawless clubs. Outlaws versus Hells Angels, the brutal battle for biker supremacy. In 1969, the wife of an American Hells Angel is rumored to be attacked by an outlaw. Furious at what has happened to his wife, The leader of the Hells Angels initiates revenge against the outlaw member and beats him till he is almost dead. In retaliation, 3 Hells Angels are killed and dumped in a nearby quarry in Florida, sparking off a decades-long feud between these two clubs, which spreads all across the globe as more chapters are formed over time. Fast forward to 1987, both British wings of their respective clubs want to hold annual get-togethers, but need a suitable venue for it. Enter Long Marston Airfield, an isolated site outside Stratford-upon-Avon in Warwickshire, which is now famously known as home to Bulldog Bash, Britain's biggest biker festival. However, things don't go according to plan, as the Coventry and Warwickshire chapter from the Outlaws feels like it is on their turf, and resentment begins brewing amongst them yet again. This leads to an unexpected attack back in 1998, when 40 Hells Angels attack allies of the Outlaws called Outcasts at Rockers' reunion gathering in London, which leaves 2 people dead. Ronald Gut Waite, vice president of the Essex chapter, ends up being jailed for 15 years, as he is found guilty of conspiring grievous bodily harm during that attack. Adding fuel to fire, that same year also sees threats from outlaws threatening bomb attacks on Bulldog Bash if they don't leave peacefully. In 2000, it gets even worse when Coventry Outlaws become official affiliates with the American Outlaw Association, which further increases tension among the rival groups. In August 2001, it is a hot and tense month in the biker world. The Hells Angels and Outlaws have been feuding for decades, but tensions have been rising as their rivalry seems to have no end in sight. It all comes to a head when a Hells Angel is shot 3 times while leaving the Bulldog Bash. Characteristically, he refuses to make any statement to the police, which only fuels speculation about what will happen next. So in 2007, it is a sweltering summer Sunday afternoon on the motorway when Jerry Tobin's life comes to an abrupt end. The 35-year-old biker is riding back from the Bulldog Bash, an annual event for motorcycle enthusiasts, when tragedy strikes. Bullet holes are discovered in his leathers, and it becomes clear that he has been gunned down by rivals of his gang, the Outlaws. The suspect was Sean Creighton, and when he finally appeared before court, charged with Jerry Tobin's murder, it initially seemed as though he was willing to take full responsibility for what happened, essentially taking the rap for everyone involved. However, this plan did not work out as intended, and 6 other men ended up being convicted alongside him too. Some people even say he ratted them out. This cold-blooded killing sent shockwaves across the global biking community, with many believing that this was a signal that war between rival gangs would ensue. Sure enough, soon after this attack there were reports of violence erupting all over Europe, most notably an assault on an Outlaws clubhouse in Scandinavia, which resulted in 1 death. In Britain too, there were numerous retaliations against Hells Angels.
Outlaw motorcycle clubs fighting each other is nothing new. But, as we mentioned earlier, the Outlaws stand out among the biker clubs in the way they treat their women. For some, they are absolute men of honor. For others, they are ruthless pimps. We'll let you decide. The story of Crazy Joe is in any case unparalleled and shocked myself.
The life of an old lady outlaw. Within the tumultuous realm of outlaw motorcycle clubs, a distinct narrative unfolds. The life of an old lady outlaw. These clubs, predominantly governed by tough, burly men who have triumphed over hardships, relegate women to a secondary status. Women residing in this testosterone-fueled world recognize that earning respect requires them to exhibit submissiveness and develop an unyielding resilience against sexist attitudes. In the context of this environment, the phrase "old lady knows her place" holds diverse meanings for women. While some perceive it as a compliment, acknowledging their understanding of club dynamics and unspoken rules, they are also acutely aware of the risks associated with speaking out of turn. These women tread cautiously, conscious of the potential conflicts and consequences their voices might invoke. Despite the complexities and challenges, certain women manage to carve out spaces of respect within the club. They defy the traditional expectations imposed upon them, showcasing strength and determination. However, not all women are fortunate enough to garner recognition. Many remain overshadowed, their opinions disregarded, and their voices silenced by the prevailing norms. Accompanying their partners to events or guests at home, women bear the weight of an unspoken expectation, to be seen but not heard. Breaking this rule is viewed as taboo, disrupting the power dynamics meticulously woven within the club's fabric. Submissiveness becomes a societal obligation, as women sacrifice their own aspirations and needs to preserve their partner's reputation and maintain group harmony. Regrettably, the status of women as secondary figures renders them vulnerable to assault and mistreatment. Domestic violence, a grim reality, thrives within these circles, often concealed by fear and the belief that it should remain an internal matter. As a result, many women suffer in silence, deprived of the support and resources needed to escape abusive situations. Tragically, some women find themselves trapped in the clutches of human trafficking, a harrowing ordeal imposed upon them by the club. Forced into the dark underbelly of the prostitution world, they are compelled to generate profits for the organization. Refusing compliance places their lives at grave risk, presenting a terrifying predicament where resistance becomes a perilous act. These women bear the weight of not only surviving but also concealing their experiences, as speaking out threatens the code of loyalty and secrecy that pervades the club's culture. Property of Crazy Joe, the testimonies of a witness. What would you do if you lived with a convicted killer like Joseph Crazy Joe Spaziano? One woman knows all too well the depths of this madman's antics. Her name is Darcy Faust. Darcy witnessed the erratic behavior of the man. He was nothing like a victim of injustice described by his lawyer who is trying to free him from the death row. Crazy Joe was convicted of murder in the 70s. Now, fellow biker brothers, we need to have a little chat. YouTube's got us on a tight leash with their uptight guidelines, constantly slapping restrictions on our videos. But no worries, folks. We've launched our exclusive Patreon, where we let loose and unleash the unfiltered, explicit versions of our content. If you're down to support our channel, swing by and join the crew. No rules, just pure freedom. Darcy would recount the ways in which Spaziano would pace the hallway up and down at night, would disappear frequently, and was always paranoid about being executed. On one occasion he came home a bloody mess. Faust was involved with Crazy Joe and the Outlaws. She is aware of the many crimes that Spaziano committed. The Spaziano murder trial in the 1970s brought out the key witnesses, who were previous members of the Outlaws. They all claimed the same thing: he was a brute and a murderer. Although initially charmed by Spaziano, it was not long before she would know who he really was. Faust offered her a place to stay. As soon as she was in his clutches, he showed his true self, and she was forced into the life of the Outlaws. His true self, and she was forced into the life of the Outlaws.